think we're recording now. Okay,
Yes, we are.
good. So now I'm gonna share my screen and share.
Zoom has had a little update, hasn't it?
I just noticed that because it didn't ask me if I wanted to share audio, and I'm like, where did that go? And then there's this new little pink button or something there. So I do have some audio that I want to share. So if you can't hear it, let me know and I'll stop sharing and try and figure that out.
Yeah, of
All right.
course.
So I am sharing like my full desktop screen and I'm minimizing everything. Oh, that reminds me, I want to quit out of Outlook because otherwise it's gonna start pinging at us. Come on, go away.
You have like all the same people from SUNY emailing you as I do nonstop.
Yeah, what would we do without Outlook? All right, so that should go away in a second. Come on, I don't know. It's like probably because I have my video going and I'm sharing and taking a while. Let me go back over here then. And so just so that, like it's just us, so you can feel free to interrupt me and to ask a question whenever you like. I have created a goodie bag for this webinar, and it's located at this link. Let me grab it for you and put it in the chat. I think that's it. Where's the chat now? All right, here's this. And in that goodie bag, there are the slides, and there's this page here that I'm on right now that really are all of the links to this session that I'm going to be showing you, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you grabbed something or whatever. You don't have to screen capture anything. I've got everything organized for you. If you look at my Chrome window, we're going to go through all of these tabs, and so all of those are represented on this links document. They're all there. So you don't have to worry about missing something. All right, so let's go back to, let me just show you the goodie bag. The goodie bag is this folder, Google folder with all of the materials, including, here's the links to the presentation, the slides. Here's the document with all of those links, and then some associated materials that I've put in there for you. All right, so back to the presentation. I'm going to minimize my ability to see you guys so I can see my screen, but just talk and let me know that you have a question, and we can feel free to do that. So as you know, I'm the director of online teaching at SUNY Online. I have been in that role, well, not director role, but I was the first instructional designer in SUNY. I may have told you that already. Oh, there's Eric, right?
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, Eric. Nice to see you.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. Last meeting went long.
No worries. And Paul, you were not part of the group the last time we met, right? Or were you?
I was not.
Yeah, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'm
Hi.
Alex. And Paul, what's your role?
I'm the provost of the college.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, nice to meet you. So as I was saying, I'm the director of online teaching. I've been here working in SUNY Online for a really long time. I started in 1994. I think that makes it 30 years. And so I was really, really young when I started. Yeah, I think this is my 30th year because it's the 30th year of online at SUNY. We got a grant from the Sloan Foundation in 1994, and that's where I was hired under that grant. And so I worked as the first online instructional designer with SUNY faculty. We had 4 campuses and 4 courses. And in the fall of 1995, we went live with 56 fully online students. And I was there. I knew where every period was in every course. I learned everything that I know by observing faculty and online students over the years and working with faculty and training instructional designers. I think they've estimated that I've trained about 5,000 online faculty over the years, like, uh, directly, indirectly, probably a lot more than that. About 400 instructional designers have been mentored and trained by me over the years. I'm an online instructor at the University at Albany in the Department of Education Theory and Practice, and my course is a required course in the COLT certificate, the Certificate of Online Teaching. It's a master's level course. I taught it for many years. I'm not currently teaching right now because I am about to defend my dissertation proposal on Tuesday. So yes, thank you. It's really crazy, and I'm almost there. And I've been in that program for 20 years. I'm not kidding. My kid was 4 years old when when I started, and she's 24 and graduating with a master's degree on May 23rd, so a month from now. I'm a middle states peer reviewer, and I'm also an expert on the the EDUCAUSE Horizon report for the higher education edition. And so I know a little bit about online teaching and learning. I am always learning more and always, extremely, passionate about talking with anybody about online teaching and learning, and helping them to understand what we know about how people can teach and learn well online, and to help them be more effective and more efficient, and understand, essentially what works. So today what we're going to do is, there's the bit.ly for all of the materials that I mentioned. This is the OSCQR reviewer training, and so you're going to get an overview of OSCQR, and we're going to talk about how to apply the standards. You're going to see an overview of the tools and the resources that we have in place to support online course reviews and reviewers. And you're going to get access and learn how to access the tools and the materials that are associated. You know, there's a lot of stuff here, and the intention is to give you an overview of the stuff so that you're prepared to conduct a course review, and that you have everything that you need and sort of some understanding of how to apply the standards. But really, you're not going to understand how to do it until you actually do it, and get some practice looking at the standard, and then looking at a course and seeing how can this course be improved if whatever the standard is talking about, it gets addressed in, better or differently, or maybe it's fine the way that it is. So it takes practice to do that. The more courses that you can review, the better you will be. And for me, any instructional designer that works for me not only has to teach online, but also has to review courses. That's the best way to learn how to, be an instructional designer, is to review courses and look at the variety of disciplines out there, the variety of types of approaches to teaching the discipline, whatever the course is, and see how they approach it, and see things that work well and see things that need improvement. That's the best way to learn how to do this. So just a little overview of the history of OSCQR. Started in 2013. I think I might have talked to you about this already. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, just so that we've been working on OSCQR since 2013. It was adopted by a national association in 2016. That's my association that I affiliate with, the Online Learning Consortium. They have it as one of their scorecards for quality in online education. I'm very, very proud of Oscar and everybody who's worked on it. We've won some awards. So it is a nationally recognized set of standards. They are research based, these standards, and it's more than just a rubric. So for have you all seen the video? Did I show you the video last time?
Yes.
I
Yes.
did show you. So uh for Paul, I don't know, do you it's not very long. It's about 5 minutes. Would you like to see the video, Paul, or would you rather look at that at another time? It's only 5 minutes long, but it gives like a really good overview of what Oscar is and what it
No,
does.
you know what? We can skip it because I have a good overview of what Oscar is. I'm
Okay,
really
good.
here for I'm just here kind of for a nice refresher on it because
Okay, cool.
I've been in the system for a while as well, like 20 years, so I've had some experience with Oscar, but it's been a while since I've worked with it.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. All right. So it's there. And the reason that I want to make sure to mention it is that when you're working with faculty or department chairs or whoever it is, you know, that you want to explain to, you know, what Oscar is if they don't know what it is, or if you're trying to, you know, help someone understand, you know, essentially what Oscar is all about. This video is really a good tool to be able to use that kind of puts everything into like 5 minutes. So you have the link and it's in the page of links, so you can return to that and use it whenever you like. So the main, you know, thing that I usually wrap up showing the video with is to mention that Oscar's not just a set of standards. It really involves the rubric, which is the set of 50 standards, and it also is a process. So Oscar as a process is a process of continuous improvement. It really approaches the whole notion of course review and refresh from the perspective of one of iteration, that courses are never done, that you need to review and refresh your course every time you teach it, because technology changes all the time, your skills change all the time, cohorts of students change all the time, your materials may change over time. And so it's really important to think about your design of your course as iterative. And Oscar provides a framework to help you review the course against some standards with some materials that can help you get ideas about how to improve things in the course. And then you know, then you actually go in and have to do the improvements. So the key things about Oscar when talking with faculty, I think, are that it is non-evaluative. You cannot fail Oscar. You don't get a score like you do in some other rubrics. What it does is it identifies areas that either the reviewer or the instructor themselves have self-assessed needs improvement. And so it's also customizable and extensible, meaning you can add standards and you can tweak the language of the standards if you need to or want to. It might be that your dental assisting program has some specific standards associated with their certification, and that might be different from your English department courses, right? So, so you can add standards, you can tweak the language of standards. It's intentionally designed to be flexible. And you know, another thing is it's not restricted to mature courses. So other rubrics say you can only have an experienced instructor with a course that has been delivered multiple times. Oscar is actually intentionally designed to be used formatively with faculty. So when they are new and have not ever taught before online, they should be introduced to it as part of their faculty development and course design process, so that it's not a surprise to them at the end that they missed a standard here or there. right? So it's really intended to help and guide the understanding of effective practices as you build a course. And then it can be used to look at a course to make sure that the course is hitting the standards effectively, at the end also, or with a course that has been around a long time and or for a while and has not ever been, reviewed in any way. It also, another unique thing about it is that it can generate an action plan. So this goes along with the idea that the course is not really ever done. It's intended to identify things that could be improved in the course, and that goes into the action plan. And then there's some help with prioritization and some guidance on how long stuff might take to fix, so that then you as the faculty person and or in conjunction with an instructional designer can pick things that you want to improve, that you have the time to improve between whenever that is and when the course is going to be delivered the next time. So you might have a very long list of stuff that you want to fix in a course, whether it's the reviewer who does that assessment, or whether it's the instructor themselves that self-assess what needs improvement. But you don't have to do all of them, before anything else happens. You can pick certain things, and some of the OSCQR tools will assist you with understanding the amount of time that it's estimated to fix it, and the priority. So we have things coded to be important and essential. And again, OSCQR is openly licensed, and it's an open educational resource. So if you don't like the things that I've tagged important and essential, you can change that. You can alter that perspective, but OSCQR has a perspective in terms of those things. So it's also, designed to target accessibility and regular and substantive interaction, to assist in some of those compliance areas. And so it's like built into it, right? There's RSI standards and there are accessibility standards. And so you can use those standards to build your rationale and or documentation if you're doing a middle state self-assessment to explain how you're going about that in your online courses. And then it's also intended to accommodate any kind of review review and refresh process that you may have. Every context at every institution in terms of that, it varies. So there's some institutions where the instructional designer has the authority and the responsibility to review every course and to say whether or not it can go live. There are some of our campuses that do that. There are some campuses where that is absolutely not allowed. And there are campuses where it's a team of people, and some of them might be disciplinary experts. So it's like a peer team within a department. Some of them might be multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary. And so you might have a librarian and a student and a multimedia person and the subject matter expert make a team to review a course. And those are just a few. And there's everything and every combination in between. OSCQR is intended to be able to support any kind of approach you may have. On some campuses, we have one person who is the director of online, the instructional designer, also manages the LMS and works with faculty and trains faculty. That person wears many, many, many hats. Sometimes in the olden days, they had the server right under their desk. I can tell you, Columbia Green was one of those places. So it's, and then we have teams like Monroe Community College that have full-on teams, director, assistant director, several instructional designers, librarian, multimedia person, video person, lots and lots of people who work with the faculty, student supports people who all are within the distance learning department. So whatever the model you have, OSCQR can be used in order to, to accommodate your model. So I'm going to give you a brief tour of the tool and the resources. And we'll talk very briefly about RSI, and because I'm going to go into more detail about it when we're looking at the standards. And so what I want you to do is to go to the OSCQR website, or you can just follow along, whatever your preference. There's a page called Get OSCQR on the OSCQR website, and it's oscqr.suny.edu. And then this these menu items here, there's one called Get OSCQR. And in order to get the PDF version of the rubric, you can download it from OLC. And that is as simple as just going to the OLC website, and you'll see it says download the scorecard, and you'll see that it's referencing our partnership. You download it, and all it's going to ask you is for your name and I think your state, and then you click OK, and it downloads immediately, and it's a PDF. And they provide it, as I said, as their quality scorecard at the course level. They have a suite of scorecards, and OSCQR is the one that they offer to everyone as the course level scorecard. It looks like this. So you fill out their little form, and it looks like this. It's essentially a fillable PDF, and the PDF has, if you mouse over this and click on it, it'll take you to the web page that's associated. This would go over to standard 1, and then the way you fill it out, if you look at the course, look at the materials that describe this standard and say, yeah, that's sufficiently present in this course, you would click sufficiently present. If you think that it's a minor revision, and the way we define minor revision is it would take half an hour or less to fix or to address, you would click that. And then if it's moderate, that's half an hour to 2 hours. If it's a major revision, it's more than 2 hours. If it's not really applicable to the course, it doesn't, not applicable, you would hit that. And then you would document your notes. So let's say in the welcome, you think it needs a moderate revision because it could be improved by having the instructor do a little extemporaneous welcome video and a quick tour of their course, for example, showing the main areas to the students that would be important for them to know about. And so you would just say, the course could use an introductory video and course tour in your action plan section of this rubric. And so, yeah, you would just go through and fill this out either as a self-assessment or as a reviewer, and make your notes. And then at the end, if you want to give more global notes, there's a space for you to enter more, global notes about things that need improvement in that course. I'll talk a little bit more about how you generate feedback, some tips and suggestions about how to give feedback in a minute, after we go through some of the standards. So also on that Get OSCQR page, you have some links to generate the interactive rubric and the interactive dashboard. I'm not sure if you are familiar with those tools, but in addition to the PDF version of the rubric, we have an online interactive version of the rubric. And you just fill this form out, and so it just wants your name and the name of your course, and it will generate this interactive version of the rubric. And this is in Google Sheets, just so that you know the technology that this is. It's a Google spreadsheet with thousands of lines of code underneath it. It's a very complex application built on Google Sheets. So this front page is sort of like the cover of the course that gives some information to the reviewers or whoever is reviewing the course. And then you'll see there are tabs along the bottom. One is instructional designer, one's faculty, one's reviewer, and then there's the action plan. On the instructional design tab, you'll see it looks essentially like the PDF version of the rubric. And again, you can mark it up or indicate that something needs to be addressed. And I'm not sure why that's not moving, but it would move. It should move. Oh, I guess it didn't. So it also has, like, if you mouse over each standard, it gives you a little description of that particular standard. It also has space where you can write some notes as a reviewer, or if you're doing it as a self-assessment. And then there's a link over here to Need Ideas, and the Need Ideas link goes over to the web page for that particular standard. And on that page, I'll show you in a minute, it has ideas and suggestions and tips for addressing the standard. So if you're the reviewer and you need some ideas, you think this course could do a better job at course welcome and introduction stuff, but I don't have any ideas off the top of my head myself, you go over to the website and it'll give you a bunch of resources and ideas on how a course might be improved. And so you can grab some ideas from that and then enter it into the action plan as a suggestion for the instructor. So again, this has another tab for the instructor and another tab for an additional reviewer. If you don't have or don't want to use those 3 roles, if you just want the instructional designer to do it, you can do that. You don't have to have 3 reviewers to use the interactive version. You know, it's often easier to do the PDF version if you're having faculty do self-assessments. And so I probably recommend that if you're going to have faculty do self-assessments, that you start them out in the PDF. It's just easier because, you know, they have to generate this rubric, and that sometimes is like way more complicated for faculty, and you just want to get them in there and looking at their course and their standards, not dealing with the technology, right? So so that's sort of like a shortcut for faculty to get into using OSCQR. If you're used to technology, or if you have faculty who are used to it, then they can certainly use this. It's not a problem. The other tool that I wanted to share with you is a thing called the OSCQR dashboard. Sorry, that's my phone. The dashboard is intended for larger scale course review initiatives. So at the campus level, if you want to review all the courses in a program, or all the courses in a department, or all of the online courses, you might want to use the dashboard. If you have someone who can be sort of the manager of that initiative, because what it allows you to do is actually generate rubrics from the dashboard for specific courses, and then track from the dashboard how complete they are, how much time is being noted that it'll take to refresh, who is assigned to do the review, and some of your own notes as the manager of the process. So for example, the one I was just looking at, Introduction to Watercolors, the ID, the faculty, and reviewer have all completed their reviews. And if you mouse over this the links over on the left, you can see this is linking directly to that rubric. And if I click on this, it'll go to that rubric and it'll show me that the ID, faculty, and reviewer have completely filled out the rubric. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to crash anything, but it will do that. And you have access to this demo. You can take a look at it and click around. So if you look at the second one, Intro to Online Teaching, the ID, the faculty, and the reviewer haven't started, and so forth, right? This one is saying it's going to take 35 hours to fix. Everybody's done with their review, but it needs to be refreshed now, and so that's going to take 35 hours. And the same with this one. You know, the ID finished theirs, the faculty has only done about 20%, and the first reviewer hasn't started. So far, based on those reviews, it's going to take 41.5 hours to refresh. So it gives you a bird's eye view of all of the reviews that are in progress, and gives you some you know, analytics to look at some of the you know, the information kind of at that top level, so you can manage a larger scale initiative. All right, there's something in the chat. Did somebody have a question? Oh, All right, Brett.
That
Good.
was me wooing when you said you were defending your proposal. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, I didn't see that when it first came in, but yes, thank you, thanks. All right, so let me give you a tour of the site and of the resources. I already said all of this stuff. We already got we went there. Yeah, we did that. And all right, let's look at the website just so that I can give you a quick tour. Every standard, so here I'm on the website and I'm actually on standard number 3, which is in the course overview and information area. So the rubric is 50 standards broken up into 6 categories, and those categories then have standards under them. So I'm looking at standard number 3, which has to do with the course information and syllabus information. And I have a whole section on how to get Oscars, implementation notes, the change log, so you can see stuff. Over here under the about, there's information about the process and how Oscar is unique. There's a whole section on regular and substantive interaction. I'm right now working with COIL, which is the Center for Online International Learning. It's about virtual international exchange, and I'm working with them to design some standards that will be built into Oscar if you're doing a COIL course that you'll be able to use, and that is going to be unveiled at CIT this year. So very excited. They got an IITG grant to work on that. It's very exciting. I love working with that group. The awards, research, if folks are looking to understand the research that supports each of the standards, there's information there. There's some community things, and then there's descriptions of the various trainings. So every standard has an explanation, and then has a little mini learning video. And these videos were captured from folks who are within our community. So they're primarily SUNY folks. I did it at our summits over the course of a couple summits. So there might be some people who are external to SUNY who we captured talking about each standard. And so they're pretty short, not long at all, but they help to describe in a different way, an overall explanation of the standard. We have a set of references for each standard. If the standard responds to RSI, there's a section. This one happens to. They don't all have this. And then we have the ideas section. So this is the place to go when you're a reviewer of a course and you want some ideas about how you would suggest that the instructor improve some stuff about the, whatever that standard is about. You can come here and look and see if there's some idea that you can get from the list of ideas or examples or whatever is in this section. You can check out. And then we have additional ideas, typically some additional stuff regarding that particular standard, some additional resources to explore, and then a way on each page, on each standard, a way to comment or a way to contribute your own example. And then periodically we go through and we'll add those examples to the Get Ideas area. So every standard is set up like that. So I want to actually talk about standard 3. So now we're gonna go. I've handpicked a few standards to go through with you to show you and to talk about how to apply them, and some information around the standard that I think is essential if you're a course reviewer to have a handle on, and to have like in your bag of resources or your toolkit as you're approaching reviews of courses. So we were looking at standard 3, which is all about having a syllabus and setting expectations, which we all know is super, super important in an online course, that expectations be very clear. And so in many online courses, the syllabus exists, and sometimes those are incredibly well done with the eye to the online learner, and sometimes they're not. And so it's really important to make sure that a course has a set of has a way for the student to easily find the information that is relevant to them as an online learner. And so they want to know, how they're going to be evaluated. They want to know what the instructor's expectations are. They want to know what the course schedule is. They want to know, contact information. How do they get a hold of the instructor and get extra help? So these are all syllabus elements that have been pulled out and then can be put into a course information area of a course to make the findability and navigation to those pieces of information, to that information, much more easily found by the students. Now, if the syllabus is really well done, it's not necessarily necessary to do this, but you can take a look at it and see, some campuses have very, very, systematic and consistent ways of designing syllabi and presenting those to the students, and some do not. So you'll have to, gauge that against your own context. I've developed this syllabus template that is OSCQR informed. And this can be used either as a template, so you can make a copy of this and replace the text in there with your own, course specific information. You can actually use this as a template for a syllabus, or as a model. So you can go through your own syllabus and see, have I mentioned my names and pronouns to the students? Do I have a basic needs statement, and do I want to have that? Do I have a whole section on the names and pronouns from the student perspective? Do I say anything about regular and substantive interaction in my syllabus? And this is one of the easiest ways to make sure, one of the things that you can do to show compliance with this DOE regulation is to have a statement in your syllabus about how you are addressing regular and substantive interaction. So you could do that. You could also add a section, or take a look at, if you have a section in there about what your course, or what you think about the use of artificial intelligence in your course, right? And so this is a model and a template. I'm offering here, as suggested, ideas. There's 3 different, obviously there's millions of different approaches to this, but this is showing that, in some courses, maybe it's not allowed. In some courses, maybe it's allowed under certain conditions. And in some courses, maybe you really want them to do it. So you want to think about, does it make sense to have an AI section in the syllabus? So this is just a model that, and also a template that you can use. This study I wanted to point out by Bethany Sue-Minich. She was at Kent State at the time. She's now at Quality Matters. And when I first saw this study, it blew my mind, because it was the first time I had heard the word findability, and what the results of the study show that a student's sense of self-efficacy and motivation are affected by how difficult it is to find basic information that's typically in a syllabus, to find it. And so it affects their learning and their satisfaction if they can't find that information. But what blew my mind that they found, and they did eye tracking study, like that the study was, tracking the students' eyes, and then a survey to get to ask them about their experience and their levels of frustration. What blew my mind in the results was that they not only, questioned whether or not the course was good, like, something that they would recommend, something that they wanted to engage in, but they also questioned the capability of the instructor to teach it. And it totally just blew my mind. And so I've been telling people for years, you have to make this stuff findable, not buried in a syllabus that is buried under 10 links, right? It needs to be very, very clear how online students get that information that they need, and it doesn't take much to get frustrated, as you all probably know. All right, so that was standard 3, things to know and to think about. So when you're looking at a course, check out where's their syllabus, check out how do they lay out their syllabus, and then if there's improvements there, give them some ideas of how they could improve it. You could point them to that syllabus template, or you could point them to those that page with all the course information. Here on this page, if you click on any of these things, you'll get an example of one that is pretty good, and which standard it's associated with. So those, as you're reviewing courses, you can check to see, and in order to flesh out your feedback. So the next one I want to show you is standard 9, which talks about course objectives. And as you're looking at a course, one of the first areas after you sort of looked at the main layout of the course is to go to the course objectives. And as an instructional designer, that's the driver. The objectives are the things that drive the design. And really the magic formula for the design of any online course is, are the objectives well articulated? And does the content map one-to-one to the objectives? Are there activities and collaborations and interaction that map to the content, that map to the objectives? And then what's the feedback plan and the assessment plan that go with each of those pieces of not content, but the activities, right? So that's like the magic formula. And if there's anything other than that in a course, it shouldn't be in there. And if something is missing, like you have an objective, but there's no activity and there's no assessment and there's no feedback to it, then there's something missing. So that the objectives drive the course, and working with faculty to help them understand their objectives is part of the role of the instructional designer, and some of the guidance that if you're doing a review you can give. So one of the things that always comes up when I work with faculty is trying to understand how much to put into a course. And the impulse of our beautiful faculty is that they are experts in their disciplines, and they want to make sure to give students everything that they know about the course or their discipline. And what ends up happening sometimes is that you get a course and a half, or much more stuff in a course, and perhaps not organized in the best way, so that for the success of the student. So I put this time on task sort of like little cheat sheet together to help instructional designers and faculty understand that in a 15-week course, you're looking for 135 total hours. That, for a 3-credit 15-week course, that means 9 hours per week. And so in conjunction with that, we have this really cool workload estimator from Wake Forest. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it allows you, it's dynamic. You can put your own information. I already pre-populated this with stuff. So you can put your own information in here, and it dynamically will generate the total number of hours per week that are estimated based on your input. And you can see, like, if I adjust this, you see the workload one went up. Now it's 19. If it's down here to 0, it's 15. This is 15.5 hours per week, when what you are looking for in an undergraduate course is 9 hours per week. So this can help. Like, it's not set in stone, right? But this can help you gauge, help the instructor gauge, or the instructional designer gauge, or the person reviewing gauge, whether, how, is it appropriate? Is the amount of work that's being designed appropriate and doable? Is it physically doable for the average online student? All right, so those are 2 cool tools. This is about designing learning activities. So you're going to be looking at how they have presented their content and what learning activities they've designed around their objectives, using their content. I mentioned the objectives. So let's go actually and look at this resource that I love. It's old, but I love this resource because it actually talks about how not to write an objective. And it's very, very, it gives this example. So this is a poor objective, poorly written objective. And this is one that is better written. And so that's not always clear. If you're not an instructional designer, it's not always clear. And many, many faculty have never been taught how to write objectives. And maybe they, whatever the context or the reason, they just might not have that experience. And so the objectives, as I said, are super important. They drive. So I have some resources here for reviewers and for faculty to help you understand some of these issues. And I introduce you, gently and kindly to Bloom's taxonomy. And what I like about this is that it helps you understand using words what dimension you're targeting with an objective. So if you're talking about remembering and recognizing in terms of the cognitive dimension, that's at the lower end of the critical thinking skills, right? If you are up at create, that's at the higher end. And so you want to, depending on the level of the course, you want to have a variety. You don't want to have necessarily everything at remember. I mean, it's entirely possible that that might be the case because of the level of the course, but you just want to be conscious of it and be choosing the words appropriately. So then that's in conjunction also with the knowledge dimension. And so this helps you see the knowledge dimension as well as the cognitive dimension in kind of a grid, so that you can begin to think about how you phrase and how you vary the objectives across, the objectives of the course to target the things that you want to make sure are targeted as a result of the learning in the course. So another handy tool that we have is this thing from ASU, which is an objective generator. And so you pick your dimension, right? We were talking, the lowest level is remember, the highest level is create. So you might want to, pick create, and then you pick a word, a verb, and you pick from these. The verb that starts your objective is super important, right? Like understand is not a good word in an objective. That's too unclear. So you want it actionable. So you could say, create something, and then you would write it here. You would create whatever it is. They're going to create, and then you write what they're going to create here. And then you just go through the little, the thing, and it'll actually generate it for you. So it's just a tool to help, simple tool, interactive, dynamic tool that either an instructional designer or an instructor could use. You don't really need that generator. You can just, use words at each of the different levels. I love this one because it's got owls on it. And here's one for people who are more analytical. Engineers would probably prefer this one. So, you want action verbs, and you want to make sure to think about that with your objectives. All right, so that was that standard. I now want to go over to the design and layout category. So we had been in, I don't remember which category we were in, but here, number 16 is in the design and layout category. I think we were in course overview and information. So for standard 16, this is about having logical and consistent and easy ways to navigate the course. So many of the design and layout standards are about accessibility. So you really want to make sure when you're looking at a course, reviewing a course, that you kind of look at it from that perspective. How is the course organized? How is it chunked? What are they doing in terms of the logic of how the course is chunked and how things navigate from one place to another. It just needs to be, you need to make sure that if you take the role of a student in a course as the reviewer, would you be able to find and do whatever it is that the instructor is asking the students to find and do? And that's really a very good approach for a reviewer, is to say, okay, I'm a student in this course. I'm going to look at this course with that lens, and I'm going to follow these instructions. And, if the instructor has labeled the chunks of the course with contextual names, that's super, super good, because that gives an advanced organizer to the student. They can understand something at the scan and glance level of looking at sort of the structure of the course. But if they in the instructions say go to module 2, the student is going and looking around for the word module, and there's no word module anywhere, right? So you need to look and follow the instructions that the instructor has given to the students and see, can I follow these instructions? Does this make sense? All right, so let's see what I have for you for tools here. So in talking about the module structure, there are certain things that we know about structuring content. And I always tell faculty and anyone, instructional designers, there's as many ways to chunk a course or design a course as there are faculty, but there are some things that we know, right? So consistency in labeling is super important. Even if it doesn't mean label everything the same, it just means be consistent and have a logic to the organization that then is, when you reference things, that it follows that logic. So the other thing that we know, the magic number for numbers of modules is 7 plus or minus 2. If you have 35 modules in a course, it's not helpful. It's not effective. It's not efficient. And in fact, we know that student satisfaction and faculty satisfaction diminish after 9 modules. And we know that, 5 or less is not enough, right? So it's 7, magic number 7 plus or minus 2. And that doesn't mean that you can't have subsections, right? So you can take those 35, sections that the instructor wants, and maybe it's chapters in a book or whatever, 35 steps of something, but you can chunk them into 7 or 9 and just have subsections for, and hopefully there's a logic to that, right? Like it makes sense, right? And you use the labels and the titles and the subjects of things to convey information. You're not just saying week 1, you might say week 1 cell mitosis, and week 2, I don't know, interviews or whatever. You want to be able to have some context from the labels of things, not lose the opportunity to convey instructional information from the subjects, titles, and so forth. All right, so what do we have then? Oh, we're going to the next one then. And the next one is 24. And that one is about, 24 is about table. This is definitely accessibility related, right? You want to make sure that aspects of the course are accessible. And one of the challenges with putting things in tables is that unless they're optimized for accessibility, a screen reader is going to have an extreme difficulty understanding that. And so you just want to build awareness in faculty. If they're going to use tables to present content, which sometimes you have to, that's really the only way to present it, that somebody takes a look at that for accessibility, to make sure someone with who's listening to it being read to them is going to be able to understand it. And the resource that I have for you for this is from Oregon State, and they're fabulous in many things that they do. But for example, this table here that I'm showing you with the fall term, freshman, sophomore, and so forth, if that were read, if it were not optimized for accessibility were read.
Table with 8 columns and 5 rows. Fall
Can you
term,
hear that?
freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, post-bac, non-dash degree total 2007, 42, 40, 32, 18, 34, 18, 46, 39.
Okay, so that is reading fall, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, post-bac. It goes straight across, right? So not intelligible, not, to somebody who's listening to that. So if it's optimized for accessibility, it'll go down the columns and read that in a way that computer voice is a little hard to understand, but that aside, it'll be more intelligible as a table if it's optimized. We already looked at that one. And the next one is, which standard is it? Standard 29. All right, so for that one, that has to do with providing engaging and a variety of engaging resources to not only present content, but also to support, collaboration and engagement. So when you're looking at a course and reviewing the course and looking at the activities that they've designed, you want to, first of all, make sure that there's an objective that it goes with, right? But you also, and you want to see, so you want to check the objective. And you also want to see that it is something that is collaborative, active, constructivist in nature. You want it to be something that engages the students in applying whatever the content is, whatever the nature of the objective is for that particular aspect. And what I really like about this resource here, this is from, where am I? University of Illinois, Springfield. I love this resource because for an instructional designer, an instructor doing a self-assessment, or someone doing a review, if they have an activity, or if you can envision a better activity that you could suggest to them, this could give you ideas about how to actually implement that online. So for example, let's say you're teaching some kind of an organizational theory class, and you're thinking, oh, this would be great for a role-playing activity. We'll make somebody the manager, and somebody the the salesperson, and somebody the HR person, and somebody whatever. How do you do that online, right? So what this does is it actually gives you an overview of how you might do that online. And it gives you, for example, if you're doing it in a synchronous online course or in an asynchronous online course. So all of these activities are, examples of activities and how you would do them in an online environment. So I really like that resource. This is a paper I wrote, or an article I wrote many moons ago, and I lovingly called it 50 Ways to Leave Your Lecture, or Alternatives to Lecture. And it's just a list of ideas of things that you might be able to do online and how you might be able to do them in an online environment. So no reason why you couldn't have a guest speaker, no reason why you can't have students lead discussions. No, you can do a pop quiz. There's as many different ways to do things. There's 50 of them here. So if you're looking for ideas, this is a good resource. And I have a number of resources like this. I'll show you a couple more in a second, that just have different active learning strategies or different types of activities that you can do when faculty are looking for ways to get students to interact or engage, or to apply something that that the course wants them to learn as a result of. All right, let's look at the next one here. I think this one has to do with number 30. This one has to do with assessment. Yeah. All right. So we're higher order thinking and problem solving. So this is related to Bloom's again. And here's another Bloom's resource that I like this because it's kind of 3D, and And it kind of helps you to say, okay, I want to hit on the knowledge dimension, I want to hit the metacognitive level, and I want it to be on on the cognitive dimension evaluating. And so here's you just put your finger on there and go in both directions, and you get to reflect, right? There's a reflect piece. So you can have students do some sort of a reflection self-assessment or blog post or reflection piece of some sort. So this can help you to see and understand how you might make sure that you're addressing each of the levels and dimensions and ideas of how you might be able to do that. I really like that. It used to be interactive. It was built in Flash, but then Flash went away, and so now it's just like a PDF static. But this is just another. I use metacognitive blogging in my own online instruction, and so I wrote a whole web. I do a whole presentation on some of the things that I do in my instruction, and one of them is this. And so I talk about why I do it, and then I talk about the value for the students. I talk about how I do it. And then I give some examples of the prompts that I give to the students to guide their metacognition. And that really has to do with getting them to think about how they're learning and how they know they're learning, and in the context of my content and my course. And so I love this activity that the students do, and I get them to publicly blog, and because that's one of my objectives is that they learn to write academically and professionally for the community of educators that are out there, so they have to do that in a blog. So anyway, this is sometimes a good tool if somebody wants to play around with that. There's some information here that might be helpful either for the instructional designer, the reviewer, or the person doing a self-assessment. For this one, I think this is standard 38, which is about regular and substantive interaction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I do a whole workshop on RSI, and I would be happy and willing to do that for you or for your faculty. It's free. There's no charge for me doing any of these workshops. RSI, as you may know, is a Department of Education regulation that requires compliance. You just have to be able to demonstrate how your online courses demonstrate regular and substantive interaction. What I always tell faculty and instructional designers, in order to build awareness, we need people to know about this regulation, and you need to be in compliance at the campus, instructional design, and faculty levels. It's very important to be in compliance. It's a regulation. However, it has absolutely nothing to do with quality. If you have a course that only responds to this regulation, it is not a high quality course or a good course, because it's only talking about one way, instructor to student. And while that's important, we all know learning is a social process. We need to have stuff coming from the student to the faculty and between students. So this is important, and this is a standard where we actually state regular and substantive interaction is present in the course, and it's at predictable and scheduled times and appropriate. And so there's a whole bunch of information there about, the actual standard and how to meet it, and then some ideas of how you might approach this particular standard. So the thing with RSI is that the DOE is using it to determine whether or not a course is eligible for financial aid. That's why it's not at all to do with quality. They're just using it to say, is this a correspondence course or not? And so obviously, I would say none of our courses are correspondence courses, but you need to be aware of this, and faculty need to be aware of it so that they can build into their course some evidence of that regular and substantive interaction. I showed you the syllabus. If you put a statement in the syllabus, as a middle states reviewer, I would say, yay, that's awesome. And then you want a couple of other things. And there's some stipulations and some guidance around, some other things that you can do. But, it has to be initiated by the instructor. It has to be academic in nature. So I do a whole workshop on this, and I'd be happy to do that for you at some point. We have a whole section of the website on this, as I showed you. There are some standards that respond directly to RSI and some that can be leveraged for RSI. And like I said, with all of this, you don't have to do all of them, right? You just have to make sure that you are aware of it, and that you have some, at the institutional level, that you have some understanding of how your online courses are addressing this regulation. At the instructional design level, you want to build some of those things in and work with faculty to make sure they're aware of them. And if you're a faculty person, you need to understand that has to be, you have to understand, you have to have an awareness of it and have some way of, if you are called upon to demonstrate how the course complies, that you're able to do that. So one of the tools I've created, another template, I like templates, is a way to document. And so, as part of the workshop that I do on this, you'd get access to this template. You have it now, it's in one of the links, but it really just is a way, and you can modify this, just make a copy of it and, modify whatever you want on it. But it just helps you to, it details out the aspects of the regulation and then helps you to document it. And so if you're doing an RSI, let's say you decided you wanted to do an initiative around RSI, you could use this as a way to look at all of the courses in a degree program, for example, to make sure that they comply. All right, so let's look at, this is the, if you take that training, you would get this, this badge. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one is 42, course offers opportunities for student-to-student interaction. Okay, so it's not an accident that, it got RSI on one side, which talks about instructor to student, and now this is student-to-student interaction, super important in a high-quality online course. And so, so you want to look at the course as you're reviewing it. Or if you're doing a self-assessment, or if you're designing a course, you want to think about your objectives and then your opportunities for collaboration and interaction and engagement, and that some of those have opportunities for the learners to interact and engage with each other. And so if you look at this standard, you'll see that, some ideas might be to have student-led discussions, right? This is what I do in my class. A student comes in, they're usually pre-service K-12 educators, and they come in talking about learning styles. Now, you and I know that there's no reputable support for the notion of learning styles in scholarly literature. But I don't tell the student that. I don't say, that's really a stupid idea. This is how it is. I say, interesting. Can you please go to scholarly work and find support for your assertion? And then they go do the work, and then they come back to my course and they teach us all about what they learned. And inevitably, they find that there's no scholarly support for that notion. It is not a theory. It's just something that, a lot of people believe or buy into for whatever reason. So I have them lead discussions on topics that they are interested in, right? That they choose. Getting the students to work with each other, talk to each other, peer evaluate each other, collaborate on projects, work in small groups. Those are all, well, first of all, not for the faint of heart, right? And I probably wouldn't toss a brand new instructor, into the deep end to do all kinds of collaborative activities, but they might want to try one. And, that's appropriate for their discipline and for, the objective that they're trying to achieve. And so I have a ton of information about how to do group work and collaborative work well online. And again, there are things that we know work and things that we know will be less likely to be effective. So it's important to look at, if your instructor, if the course you're reviewing has group work in it, it's important to look at that activity and see, is this likely to work? And if not, what are some suggestions you can make to improve the likelihood that it will be successful? So I have lots of resources on group work. So, looking at how big the course the group is, or how small it is, whether or not students have been prepared to do work. Did they start with low stakes group activity to then be able to do the higher stakes activity well? People aren't born knowing how to do group work. You have to scaffold them and help them understand it, especially online. Do you let them choose their own groups? And maybe that's okay, but maybe that's going to take too long. And, having them choose their own groups, you want to get them doing the activity because you only have whatever number of weeks. And so maybe you want to assign groups. And so how are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure that you have diversity in your groups? Those kinds of things. So it's not, it's not rocket science, but it's also not just like magic either. There's like some science behind it, and some best practices behind it. All right, let's look at the next resource. Here we have so talking in this particular standard, we're talking really about making activities that are engaging and more active. I like this resource. It's from Inside Higher Ed, and it's one of those lists of things like how like that 50 ways to leave your lecture resource. This is showing you how to get more active learning into your online course. So doing things like annotating and doing things like working on a concept map, using like a tool like Miro, for example, brainstorming tool, or a mind mapping tool. Different types of activities that you can do or design into a course activity that makes it more of an active learning activity. So there's a lot of ideas here depending on the course that you're reviewing and the objective that it's trying to achieve and the content that's been presented. These are ideas to help you give some feedback to someone who might have need some suggestion on how to improve that particular aspect of their course. All right, let's look at assessment and feedback. Standard 45 is about providing frequent, appropriate, and authentic feedback. And so for this one, let's get down to the ideas. What are the resources? So this is, always something that you want to pay attention to when you're doing a review of the course. How are they planning to provide feedback on the activities? What are the evaluations or assessments that they have planned? And are those designed as effectively and efficiently as possible, given the options and limitations of the online environment, right? So if they have a midterm and a final and they're multiple choice tests, that needs work, because that is not authentic, I would argue, in any environment. You want to, again, start with your objectives, but then, think about what's the content, what are the activities, and then how are you going to assess that activity? And so there's lots of tools that, to share here on assessment strategies. These are online assessment techniques, and, things that might have some analogy in a classroom. So sometimes it's easier to talk to faculty about authentic online assessment when they can understand an analogy to it and from their face-to-face experiences. And so there are ways to do all of these things in an online environment. And so when you're helping someone improve their approach to assessment, you want to think about what is it that they're trying to achieve and what's going to be an idea that they will hear and understand that would help them achieve it in a way that's authentic and effective in the environment, and that gets at what it is that they are looking to do. It also has to be doable for them, right? Like, it has to be something that they're going to be able to do, given where they are, how much time they have, what, those kinds of issues. Where they are technically was what I was trying to say, and also also pedagogically where they are, in terms of their thinking. So this is another resource, alternative assessment types, a similar list of things that you can think about and use as ideas to suggest to an instructor. If the instructor is doing the self-assessment, they can come here and read through this and see if something might assist them to improve that particular area of their course. We also have this resource, which is about rubrics. So whenever I talk about assessment and evaluation, it always comes back or down to a discussion about rubrics. So when you're looking at an online course, you want to see, are rubrics provided? And there's lots of different ways to do rubrics. There's lots of examples of rubrics that are out there, but for an online student, and there's pluses and minuses also depending on whether it's done well or not. Like a poorly done rubric would be better without it, than with it, right? So I like this one, this resource from Stout, because it's got some examples, and this is a rubric for an online discussion, for an e-portfolio, for a video project. Some of it is K-12, but you can comb through this to look at all different kinds of rubrics and to use them as models, right? Like you can take this and then adapt it to your own course, your own instruction, to the faculty's activity, or you can point them to that, let's say they're doing what it was like a video project up here. Let's say they're doing a video project. You could suggest, okay, this is great activity, but let's give the students a rubric so that they have an understanding of what the expectation is in terms of different levels of meeting your expectations. And then also I would suggest, providing a model. Here is an example of a high quality, student response to this particular assessment. So the student can see what it is that you're looking for in terms of that activity. And there's a rubric. So there's no, it makes it more clear to the student how they can meet your expectations for any given activity. This is another resource from Western Washington, and I like this one of examples also. That's sort of like a little repository of examples of all different types of rubrics, again, that can be used as models and adapted. And then the last one is another one that has a list of types of activities. This one's from Faculty Focus. If you're not familiar with that publication, it's a great publication. I was trying to highlight it. Okay, yes, there's ads. It's just another list to think about, how you often the conversation around assessments and evaluation will turn to how do we prevent students from cheating, right? And we can also get into a whole conversation about AI around this, which is why it'd be good to have a statement in your syllabus about how you feel about AI. But I prefer to think about supporting students in academic honesty as opposed to preventing them from cheating. Like I take the side of the student and assume that they are not cheating, with the understanding that likely everybody does and whatnot. So you want to design your course to be as effective as possible to support students to have academic honesty. That's how I'd say it. And so there's lots of ways to do that. And again, the multiple choice test that's 50% of the grade is just not really authentic. And you really want to, if you see that in a course, you really want to have a conversation with the instructor and give them some suggestions and alternatives to how to more authentically assess the objectives of that particular assessment. All right, let's look at the next one here. finally, this is the last standard I'm going to show you, and that's about ending a course. And look at the end of a course if you're reviewing a course, and see how the instructor, or if the instructor is asking for feedback from their students on the student's experience in the course. This is not a course evaluation or like anything that is going to be shared with anyone other than the instructor. And I highly recommend that every instructor do this, because then they can use that information as they do their own review and refresh of their course. And so I have suggestions on how instructors can get that information. It's not sufficient to say, did you like the course? Or, you want to get real feedback from the students. And so you want to ask them some specific questions about their experience, in terms of finding things, in terms of level of work, in terms of the types of feedback and assessment they got. You want to be sort of explicit so that you can get some substantive feedback back that you can then use to self-assess, to say, okay, I'm hearing this a lot from multiple cohorts of students, so I think I might need to work on this a little bit in my course. So I have some suggestions on how to, end a course, and what to include. You want to make sure that you spend a whole semester with a group of online students, and the last day comes and boom, it's done, and everybody, there's no goodbye, right? So you want to think about that a little bit in terms of, the social presence aspect of the course, and how you have either farewell activities or culminating activities that allow students to have a sense of closure and a sense of wrap up of the learning that they did in your course. And one of the ways that I do it is I create a farewell video for my students. And I'm not going to play this for you, but if you're interested, this is, I did it with a tool called Animoto. It's free. All the tools I use are free. I just stitched together things that I learned about the students during the course of the class, and to show and demonstrate to them that I saw them and I learned about them, and that I care about them, and that I believe that they will be successful in everything that they do. And you can't underestimate the power of something like that. On the success of a student and their experience of you and that course. So culminating activities, farewell activities, closure to the online learning community is super important. All right, now let me talk real brief about how to give feedback. As a reviewer, I have a document in here to help guide you as a course reviewer to provide feedback to either your peers or instructors that you're working with. And I want to, many of the things that we've talked about already kind of follow this. So you want to start with the objectives. You want to look at the content, you want to look at the activities and the assignments, you want to look at the plan for how the course is being introduced and what kinds of activities the instructor has designed to open the course, to build trust, to build community. You have to have social presence before you can get to teaching and cognitive presence. If you don't do a good job with the introductory activities, you're not setting the students up for success. So, how are the instructions worded? Can you follow them? Are they logical? Are they understandable? Do they provide rubrics? Does it approach the activities from a constructivist or an active learning, or are they applied activities? Are they experiential activities? Think about that active learning, and is that going on in the course? Is it learner centered or is it teacher centered? Has the instructor tried to duplicate what they do in their classroom without regard to the options and limitations of the online environment, or have they actually endeavored to reconceptualize how they achieve their objectives in the online environment? Make sure that you have some research under your belt to support anything that you suggest. Like try and understand that, because sometimes, you need to say, it's not just me that Alex telling you should do this, but we know that if you don't do this, this is going to impact students in this particular way. And that's not what we're trying to do, right? So you want to have some research in your back pocket. The OSCQR website provides many resources that support each standard from a scholarly perspective. You want to approach faculty as learners. The feedback is going to help them, like from that mindset that the feedback that you're giving them is to help them improve their experience, improve the students' experience and learning. And think about that when you're phrasing your feedback. I have a resource here that I put together called Warm and Cool Feedback. This is just typical how to give feedback information. You start with the good, right? You give them some good, you did this really, really well. I really like this. This is awesome, if it is. And the goal is to say really clearly, these are the things that are working really well in your course. And then you want to identify if there are things that need improvement, what are the things that can be improved in the design of the course? And you want to be specific and offer recommendations and suggestions that are going to improve how that particular standard is addressed. So again, also, like I mentioned, the OSCQR website is really, really helpful in terms of giving you information and ideas and suggestions and citations as you're doing your review. I've also included here some examples of course reviews. These are the ones I could get my hands on quickly and easily. As I build this particular resource out, I will, put more in here and more variety of types of feedback, more disciplines, but you can take a look. And I wrote these, so you will see love, love, love everywhere, right? Like that's how I talk. So if that's not how you talk, be yourself, right? Like, and if that's not the type of relationship you have with your instructors, be authentic to yourself. These are just examples, and ignore the pieces of it that you think are, personality focused, right? So I'm giving the warm feedback with all of the love, and then I'm giving some constructive, cool feedback by telling them you need to fix this or that, right? So take a look at that as you do any of your reviews. So that's all the content, and look at that, it's 4 o'clock on the nose. What questions do you have? I know it was like a fire hose. And there's a lot here, and I want to remind you that the resource is there with all of the links. I see people laughing. Eric, I just saw you laughing. The goodie bag is there. Let me go grab the link for you again. Did I put that in the chat?
You did.
I did, didn't I?
You
Yeah,
did.
you did.
Yeah, and I was following along.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, good.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, everything
just
is
want you to
so.
know that everything that
Go ahead, Alexander.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, everything is super thorough and everything. I think it'll just be a matter for me of like getting in there in the moment, getting in there with the class, and then locating all the making sure that I can pull everything up, and but everything is so thorough. And I also think much of it, as I've gotten to know Oscar, like it's self-explanatory. It follows some clear logic, and makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think I think making sure that that I can find the resource that I need in the moment will be the biggest challenge. But I'm sure as I get into that, it'll be like, okay, I've got this, and I assume that you start running into similar issues cropping
you
back up.
practice it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
As you
Eric's
practice,
got the, sorry,
as you
go away. Go
practice
ahead,
it,
Alex.
you will. Something's going on with my Zoom. Can you guys hear me?
You're breaking up a little.
Oh, I don't don't understand what's going on. It needs me to
Might be
restart
back
my,
now, though.
hang on,
Yeah,
hang
I
on.
think you just cut out for a minute, but yeah, maybe frozen.
Yeah, I think so. Eric, I think that you have the big takeaway, which is we just need to do this a bunch to
Yeah.
get used to it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a couple
learn.
old classes I'm going to run through with my own that I'll do, and then willing faculty. But yeah,